So in binding energy we have two terms. One is binding, second is energy. Actually this is a negative statement here. Binding is a negative statement in this one, binding energy. The meaning of binding is combining. Actually the meaning in English we have meaning for this one. Binding means for combine, but here for this binding energy here, this binding means here it is separation, not combining. It is separation. So that's why we can say here it is a negative statement. Here two terms are there. One is binding, second is energy. Means this energy we have to supply to separate, not combine. So that's why it is called a negative statement. Right? So what is negative statement we'll discuss here. So this is a proton, this is neutron. Right? So if you want to combine these two, proton and neutron, right? So when they combine, it will be called as nucleus, because nucleus, protons and neutrons will be there, right? So this atom, in atom, protons and neutrons are there. Okay. Now here we combine proton and neutron in a nucleus. Now we want to separate this. So we have to supply energy here. Right? That energy is known as binding energy. Binding energy means to separate this proton and neutron. That is binding energy here. Binding means not combining. To separate this proton and neutron, we have to supply energy. That energy is known as binding energy. Okay. For separation, we have to supply energy. That is known as binding energy. So binding energy is nothing but we have to supply energy to separate proton and neutron. So your binding energy definition is for separation of proton and neutron in atom, supply of energy is binding energy. Okay. Now we'll see why we have to supply this energy. Right? Now we'll take an example here. Suppose if you take an example here of helium. Here I am taking an example here. Helium contains 2 protons plus 2 neutrons. Okay. 2 protons plus 2 neutrons in a nucleus, right? So if you take the mass number, right? The protons and neutrons, if you multiply this mass unit, right? So this will be 2 into proton mass unit is 1.00727. The mass unit. How much mass it is that we are finding here for helium? 2 into, for a neutron, mass unit is 2.017, 2.017324. Okay, 324. So if you multiply this, if you simplify this one, you are getting a mass of 4.031864. So this is the mass of helium, right? Proton plus neutron. But actually, when you find the mass of this helium, it is at 4.001534. So this value, actually both values are not equal, means there is a loss here. So how much loss? It is 0.303 0.303, 0.303, 334, 0.0. So this much of loss is there. When they are separate, this is the actual mass it should have, but after combining, the mass is 4.001534, so the loss here. So when they are combining these two protons and two neutrons, so when they are combined like this, two protons, two neutrons in an atom, in a nucleus, in an atom, so it is called nucleus here. So actual mass 4.001534 is not there, only 0.030334 is there, means there is loss here, loss of this one. So when they combine means some energy is released here, right? Now to separate this one, we have to supply this energy, so this is not mass defect. Actually we know that E equal to mc square, right? So E is proportional to m. So this mass is proportional to energy. So whatever the loss of energy that we have to supply, that is not binding energy, to separate this one, that much of loss. That is known as actually binding energy. So that much energy we have to supply here. So what is that energy here we have to supply? So delta E equal to delta m into c square, right? So delta m, so this is the which one, mass defect per unit mass if you calculate. So this will be EB, if you substitute these two values, 4.536 in 10 power minus 12 joules will get. So these are binding energy we have to supply to separate that two proton, two neutrons from the helium. So now again I'm summarizing here. It is very simple here. Just binding energy means binding energy or mass defect both are same. Binding energy or mass defect both are same only. Okay. So what is binding energy? The energy, it is energy we have to supply to separate protons and neutrons in a nucleus. To separate this one, we have to supply this much of energy. Why there is a loss? When they are separate, so much mass will be there, because energy is proportional to mass. So much mass is there. So when they are combining, that is released, some energy is released there. So that is the actual defect here. So that much of energy we have to supply to separate. When they combine, they are losing. So we have to supply that energy to separate. So that is known as binding energy. Binding is not combining. It is the energy we have to supply to separate. Okay. Right. Thank you.